Hello and welcome to the Unnamed Automotive Podcast. My name is Sami Haj Assad, and with me, as always, is my good friend and fellow automotive journalist, Benjamn Hunting. Say hi to the people, Ben.
Greetings, human listeners.
Greetings to everyone. If this is the first time you're listening to our podcast, thank you for trying something new. I will reiterate, Ben and I are a pair of automotive journalists, but more important than that, we're extremely good friends. Right, Ben?
Sami, I've been rewatching this show from the late 90s.
Called Friends?
No, that some of our listeners might be familiar with. It was called Millennium. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
So there was a show called X-Files that was really popular in the 90s that I really liked. And the guy who created X-Files, Chris Carter, he tried to make a few other shows. Like there was a show, I can't remember, about like visiting some other planet and it didn't go well. And then there was some other show called Harsh Realm. And then there was this show called Millennium. And Millennium's interesting because it kind of crossed over with the X-Files. Like sometimes they would share characters. And it was about Lance Henriksen playing this. He's a guy who used to be a detective and now he's a quote unquote consultant in Seattle. And when he enters a crime scene, he can see what happened at the crime scene because they explain it away by saying that he puts himself in the shoes of the perpetrator and he can become the worst part of what humans are. But it's really just very spooky. The reason I'm bringing this up is because it's shot in Seattle, so it rains a lot, right? Well, it's set in Seattle. I'm sure it was shot in Vancouver, but he drives I believe it's a two-door Jeep Cherokee everywhere, an XJ. And it's like bright red. And it's the only piece of color pretty much in the entire show. So I appreciate that. It's a very 90s show. Anyway, shout out to anyone out there who remembers Millennium or is watching Millennium. I'm talking about it because I bought all 3 seasons on DVD for $10 and I've made my way through disc 1. So I'm gonna gut it out. I'm gonna try it. I never finished it when I was younger, so I'm gonna try and do that.
Chris Carter, I thought you were gonna go with Vince Gilligan, who I'm like, the guy who did Breaking Bad?
No.
And you're like, no, absolutely not.
Of course
he
not.
hasn't done much since like 2014 or so.
Who, Chris Carter?
Yeah.
Well, isn't that when they did the reboot of the X-Files?
Oh, is that what they did?
I mean, there were 2 additional seasons that I can't recommend anyone watch. I checked out after season 7. That's the only one I can get to. And I think it went to like 13. I don't know. It's bad news either way.
It's also interesting that you bring up this XJ because Haggerty just did a video on the XJ calling it one of the most important cars ever. I don't know, ever. Well, a very important car, which I watched it and I agreed with.
In a lot of
ways. Very
ways,
interesting concept, yes.
It was the first unibody SUV, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And it rode really well on pavement, which was not something that you expected from an at the time SUV.
Yeah, as well as anything with 2 solid axles.
And was good for anything, with a Jeep badge on them.
Yeah. They're still, and they're also styling icons, if you think about it. It's still, the shape still works. It's a box, but it's an attractive box. It's a cheerful box. And it works to the point where they didn't change it from like 1984 to 2001, I think was the final year.
Basically.
Yeah.
I think they dropped the 2-door by that point, though, right?
Yeah, probably in the mid-90s. That's when most of the 2-door SUVs died. Like, you lost the 2-door Explorer sometime around then. The 2-door Blazer, I think, lasted a little bit longer, the small Blazer.
Don't forget the GMC model, the Jimmy.
The Jimmy.
I think more cars should have, like, human names.
Human names?
Yeah.
You know what's funny is, in some parts
like
of
Jimmy.
In some parts of North America, Jimmys are sprinkles, right? That you put on ice cream.
Oh, yeah, sure. Then we should also name things after condiments and ice creams.
Like the nougat.
Yeah.
And the score bar.
Crumble.
There's some Canadian.
Would you like to get in the 2027 Honda Crumble?
GM kept its full-size 2-doors going for a while. You could buy a 2-door Yukon.
Or Tahoe?
No, there was no 2-door Tahoe. There was a 2-door Yukon, and there was a Blazer that was a 2-door. But I think that the Yukon outlasted the Blazer. The Blazer died when the Tahoe showed up, but the Yukon kept its name, and they kept it. The Yukon GT, I believe, was the 2-door model, and they kept that one going for a little while. I'm pretty sure that the Yukon outlasted the Blazer, but I could be wrong.
Normally, I ask you to plug your publications at this point, but I'm going to skip that because we went into clearly.
I'm going to do something different.
Ben's knowledge on automotive history is unrivaled. Really,
instead of publications, I'm going to pick 3 colors that I really like. 1, 2, 3, go! Purple, green, brown. That's
beautiful.
That's today's colors.
Those are the three colors my child recounts every time I ask him, what color is this?
Every time you ask him what he saw in his dream?
I'll be like, what color is this? And he'll be like, purple. And it's definitely not. And he'll be like, can you try? I'm like, can you try again? And he goes, green. And I'm like, no, it's red for sure. But
purple's a good color. Shout out to Daytona Violet, the best
then he
BMW.
goes brown
Second best
after that.
BMW color.
Okay, this week we've got some cars to talk about. I've got a car that, listen, we say car, but I use that as a catch-all for, like, what we're talking about, right?
Okay.
Like the vehicle I drove could also be called, I think, a long roof.
No, I don't think that's right.
What is a long roof?
A long roof is another word for station wagon.
Why did they just say station? Why? First of all, why is a station wagon called a long roof?
Because it has a long roof.
And you're telling me that the vehicle I drove had the shortest roof known to man?
No, but I'm saying that perhaps the vehicle you drove, its identifying feature isn't the long roof. I think that for a wagon, because there's usually a sedan version of the wagon, the long roof version of the sedan is the wagon. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's
why do they just call it the blank wagon, right?
The blank wagon?
Whatever it's called.
The blank wagon sounds like something you pass out in college after a party. Yeah, I woke up in the blank wagon again.
I don't think I've ever had the pleasure or privilege of waking up in a cozy wagon.
Blank
somewhere.
wagoning?
Yeah.
They might have called it something different in Ontario.
Yeah, perhaps. I drove the 2025 Honda Odyssey.
Okay, so
which is
right
a
away,
minivan. Let's be clear.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you. There's no other vehicle that has a short roof that is linked to the Odyssey. You can't just call the Odyssey the long roof.
It's kind of like a Pilot.
A Pilot also has a long roof. It's
but
the
this
same
is
thing.
Longer, I would bet.
No, if it was like, you know how? Okay, I'm gonna.
You know what it has? You know what it has? Defining feature: bigger doors. The Honda Odyssey big door.
Yeah, if you called it the big door, that's fine. I think that works. But like, let's go back in time to the Scion XB, which is one of my favorite vehicles ever, the first generation. You would argue that has a long roof, right?
I guess so. Now I would. You told me what to do.
Yes.
I'll do it.
So now that we're in agreement about that, there's a second version of the XB called wasn't it called the short deck?
What are you talking about?
The sport deck. There was a pickup truck version of the XB that was only available in Japan, and I think it was called the sport deck.
Okay, first of all, was it still called the XB at that point, or was it just a Corolla something?
Deck. No, it was never. It's not linked to the Corolla whatsoever.
XB short
sport deck.
Deck.
So what they did was they chopped the roof of the XB and gave you an open cargo area.
Listen, I Googled this and I got a lot of poker terms.
so
I don't know what's happening.
What I'm saying is there was a long roof, and to identify the different one, they talked about the deck.
Open deck, okay.
Open deck. So there you go. Instead of having a long deck or a long roof, it had an open deck. So they're defining it based on what the original was.
So you're telling me that the original Honda Odyssey is original enough?
Yes, there's nothing else. There's no other version of the Odyssey.
Okay, but what about, can I call it an Odyssey shooting brake?
No.
Why?
Because the shooting brake has two doors.
Why?
Do you really want me to get into it?
No, it's fine.
All right,
I got the Honda Odyssey. Can I tell you something about the Odyssey? They have really done a really interesting job with their trim levels. They started at the EXL. Normally there would be an EX.
No.
And then you would go to the EXL. But they start right there.
Honda does not want to sell an affordable minivan.
That's right.
They made that abundantly clear.
Now, the thing is, I got into the Honda Odyssey really expecting to be, I wouldn't say let down, but just like, I was expecting to drive something that showed its age, I think, in the segment. Now, the minivan segment has been revitalized a little bit by some innovations, mostly through Kia, with the introduction of the Carnival, which got these really fancy second row seats, and then they made a hybrid version of the Carnival, which is also pretty cool. There's also a plug-in hybrid version of the what's it called? The Chrysler Pacifica. There's a standard hybrid version of the Scion, of the Toyota Sienna.
There's also a base Voyager. Don't forget about that. Is that still around?
I'm not sure. And there's also, all of those vehicles are offered in some form or another with all-wheel drive. The Honda Odyssey has none of these frills or innovations.
It has a vacuum.
It doesn't anymore.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that was the only reason anyone bought it. HondaVac.
HondaVac, I think we went through this.
HondaVac was the Honda Jet of vacuums.
I believe HondaVac was the supplier for HondaVac was, I think, ShopVac, and ShopVac went through some stuff during COVID. And
what?
And I don't think there's a HondaVac anymore.
Wow.
That's my understanding of it. I might have made that up entirely. Let me look that up.
I feel like if you're going to buy a vacuum for your garage, it's a ShopVac. It's like ShopVac has become the Kleenex of the vacuum world, right? Where even if it's an off-brand vacuum for your shop, it's still called a ShopVac. So it's surprising to me that their brand wasn't strong enough to survive a time when people probably were still vacuuming their garages.
Absolutely, yes. But no, this is the reality of it. So HondaVac is no longer a thing, which I agree with you. I think if I was going to get a minivan with a built-in vacuum, that's right up my alley. That's sick.
If you were going to get a minivan because it had a built-in vacuum,
yeah.
Now you can get one still from Chrysler, I think.
I believe one of the other automakers has a vacuum.
Is it Chrysler or Toyota? It's one of those two.
One of them. I don't know for sure. But
you know what here's the thing. The branding isn't there. Like, we know HondaVac right away.
Yeah, exactly.
But the other ones could be anything. Could be like Vac and Scream or something, like, like Stow and Go.
Suck and Stow?
Like, Suck and Stow. Yeah, that's definitely what they would call it. Woo! I don't know what Toyota would call theirs. Grand Vacuum? I don't know.
Synergy Suck.
Hybrid Synergy Suck.
Hybrid Synergy Vac.
You know why there's no vacuum in the Sienna, if it is indeed? Because the battery takes up all the cargo space.
And there's no cargo room for the bag.
Yeah.
But yeah, seriously, I was expecting to be really let down by this car that lacks any sort of killer feature, where all the rivals basically offer among the same features, but something interesting too, right? So you've got these two vehicles with hybrid powertrains, standard hybrid powertrains in the Kia and the Toyota. You've got a plug-in version at Chrysler. You've got all-wheel drive versions, and the Honda has, as far as I can tell, none of that, as well as a relatively high starting price point of $52,000 in US, and in Canada, oh, you're gonna love this one. In Canada, it is
70
much
grand?
more expensive.
Is it 70 grand?
Yeah, almost $64,000 for the model I drove, which is called the Black Edition. What color was Black. It was bright red.
Okay. Wow.
And even the badges, I'm not sure were black either.
What is that? What
I don't
is
know.
That?
So I was thinking to myself while I was driving around today, because you ever see like commemorative versions of certain vehicles that come only with a specific color? I'm thinking of like there was a Lexus there was like a Lexus, I think it's the NX, that came with this bright orange paint finish. And I think that's only available for a certain year. And I think there was also these hyper blue versions of some Subarus.
Well, they're also all of the release series Scions, right?
Yeah. I keep thinking that I'm going to get one of these. Eventually, I'm going to get one of these incredibly difficult to resell special trim versions, anniversary editions that are specific to this paint finish. And then, like, that was cool. But a black edition that is anything but black is less cool altogether.
It's honestly
right?
super weird. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And
I think you can get a black edition in black. Yeah, you can.
But the fact that you can get it in other colors is just mind-blowing. Speaking of mind-blowing, the official designation for the Chrysler Pacifica's vacuum is Stow and Vac.
Nailed it. Didn't I say that?
I think that's a missed opportunity.
Oh, I said something far less family-friendly.
And
Stow and Vac is much better.
The Sienna gets a vacuum for 2025 and a fridge.
Yeah, so it has no cargo room at all.
No, the back is just a fridge now. Like, you open the hatch and all this like mist comes out.
Yeah.
It's super. The windows are frosted.
And a little pile of dirt that you vacuumed is nicely chilled.
Yeah. It chills your dirt.
The Honda has none of this. And in fact, again, as a black edition, none of the badges are black. There's a few black trims here and there. In the US, you're looking at a model called the Elite.
That makes more sense.
Some of the important features, according to Honda, with the Elite trim is what is this? It is this is not fair.
Why is it not fair?
It has a hands-free power tailgate. What do you think of that?
I think that's something every vehicle has.
That should be in all trim levels.
Let me
right?
shorten that. Next.
Yeah. Here's one of the things that the car actually had that caught me off guard was it also has a stow and go feature essentially for the third row seats. They tumble in the strangest way I've ever seen. You have to activate this from the cargo area. You pull a latch, the seats fold forward and then backwards and then are flat with the load floor, and I love that.
Is it trying to psych you out?
Yeah, it totally is. Like, I'm like, oh, Honda, you messed this up. You fixed it.
Like Honda is a child that must be guided through this process.
No, I think they're just like, they love to prank people. Like, they're like, gotcha. And then one of the other interesting features that totally caught me off guard was that, like the Pilot, there's a middle seat in the second row that is removable. Unlike the Pilot, you can then, once you remove this middle seat, you can then move the outboard seats. You can bring them together,
make like a
which
mega
is really
seat.
cool. To make like a love seat almost. It's wicked.
Is the middle seat, the removable section, is it a flotation device as well?
I didn't test that out.
That
I
might
don't
be
think
the killer
so.
feature.
I don't think so. But you can then move these two seats together, which also improves the accessibility to the third row because it creates a really big passageway by the
you have to
sliding
move
doors.
them from one side to the other. You can't push them together in the middle.
You can, yeah. You can push them in both of them towards the middle.
So you could put any of them anywhere.
Basically,
Okay.
yeah, maybe.
All right.
I didn't try pushing one all the way into the
It's like the
middle.
Voltron of seats.
It's pretty cool, honestly. I think that's pretty sick. That was one of the few things that I was like, oh, hey, maybe there's something going on here. Now, the important thing to talk about with the Honda Odyssey is just how much space it has. To me, this is what makes this vehicle stand out. It felt like a huge car when I was in it, but when I'm driving it, it feels super normal to drive. My child and all of his stuff, I could throw it back either in that third row flat storage area. I can even fit it behind the third row, which is beautiful. And it's also got sunshades, it's got chargers, it has here's one of the weird ones. It's got a rear seat entertainment system, but no functionality for that unless you bring it in yourself. So you have to bring in like a Fire Stick or a Roku stick or something like that, or a video game console is what they recommend. But I think modern video game consoles suck up too much juice for a car's outlet.
How can a console use too much juice but a vacuum is okay?
How much wattage is a vacuum?
I don't know. It feels like it would be a lot.
No, but that's like the vacuum you don't have to plug in, right?
No, but it's still drawing power, right? Like,
how much is because I remember hearing about this, like it might not work with like one of these new PS5s or something. And I couldn't find any headphones for this, so I think maybe you have to bring in your own headphones for the Odyssey.
They're basically just giving you a screen, it kind of sounds like.
Yeah, with nothing to do on it.
That's a little weird. Not the first time I've run into that, though.
No, but from what I understand, the Stellantis vehicles have like a built-in, I think, Prime video system or Amazon Fire operating system.
Is
so
that
basically,
what you want?
I don't know.
Is that what you're pining for?
Yeah, we'll talk about that later, I think. But there's something to do with that screen, right? And this doesn't have that. So I think that's a missed opportunity. Basically, from what I know about Honda's infotainment system is that they're basically built on Android, an Android operating system. So you should be able to just download an app, but that isn't the case here. Otherwise, the car is a minivan. It's got a 280 horsepower V6 with a 10-speed automatic transmission.
The same V6 we were dinging Honda about last week, right?
The week prior, I think.
Okay.
Oh yeah, in the MDX.
Yes.
Right? I actually liked it in the MDX.
Well, we were talking about how it's still...
I hated it in the Pilot.
Yes. I'm assuming it's the same thing because they share the same platform.
Yeah.
They're both long roof versions of that platform.
Long roof versions of the platform. Totally fine powertrain. I never felt like it was stressed out at all. I just wish the fuel efficiency was a tiny bit better because I got pretty underwhelming fuel efficiency by my expectation of it. But I guess in terms of when you take into consideration
its massive size,
yeah, and that the fact that it's not it's a naturally aspirated V6, you're looking at 22 miles per gallon, and at best 28 miles per gallon on the highway, which is just, it's okay to me. It's nothing fantastic.
No, if you want to beat that, you probably have to go hybrid.
Exactly.
For a vehicle that size. And
exactly.
with those aerodynamics.
But overall, you get a maximum of 155 cubic feet of storage space behind the first row. If you had all the seats up, you get 160 cubic feet of passenger volume, which is to say that like every part of this interior is functional, is totally useful to you. And I love that about it. I love the amount of cubby spaces, and there's like secret compartments everywhere to hide like coins or candy or snacks or whatever. And yeah, I separate my candy and my snacks in terms of designation.
Well, I'm also glad you separate your candy from your coins.
Yeah.
Real question though.
You don't want to.
Who's still carrying coins in their car? So I know that our American listeners probably use coins more than
pennies?
We do. Well, no, it's weird because so in Canada we have dollar coins and $2 coins, right? Which in the States you don't have. But I feel like quarters are more useful in the States than they are in Canada. I don't know. I don't know why I feel that way. Maybe it's just because the difference in currency, the pricing, the exchange rate. If any of our American listeners want to contact us and say whether they use coins enough to justify having them in cars, because up until the 2000s, there were always like dedicated coin sections in cars. Like in the center console, there would be that little spring-loaded thing where you could sort your coins.
That was the best.
And it was useful if you were, doing tolls or if you lived in an urban area where you had to pay for parking.
But they didn't support the $2 coin here, did they?
I think that by the time we had the $2 coin in big circulation, we pretty much had shifted to electronic payments. Like that's the thing, when you use a toll booth these days, it's less likely that you're going to use coins because you have transponders or you can pay with a card. And it's pretty much the same thing for parking. So I'd love to hear from American listeners as to their coin usage in their car.
All of our tolls here, all of our toll highways here are electronic tolls, which is really annoying. I mean, if you really wanted to just like avoid traffic on a specific day,
well, in Quebec,
you have to
not.
register
in Quebec,
and all
you
that
still
crap.
Have to pay.
You still you have a coin in? You have a coin basket?
It's not a coin basket, but when you are the closest toll road to me, there's two in Montreal. They're both for bridges. One of them is partly a highway, but the other one is mostly a bridge. In any case, they have toll stations where you have to stop and you pay by card. You can use a transponder, but I don't know if you can pay with coins or cash. I've never tried.
That's annoying.
Because I don't like holding up the 3,000 people sitting behind me.
I love it in Europe, honestly. When we go to Ireland, you can pay with coin there, and you just chuck it into a basket, and then you hear it do its
That's what it was like when I was growing up. It was amazing.
I love it.
And it was always funny to me because it was like, how does it know? Like, as a kid, I had no idea how it could count those coins. But, older
and in my regular everyday life now, you use a quarter to buy a cart at the grocery store now?
We don't do that. In our regular everyday life, we're just tossing coins at everything to pay for stuff, and it never works. And no one can count them.
We don't do that.
No one can count them because they're coming in so fast right at your head, and you can't,
Oh, yes. No, but I love the fact that we've got these coin, the little coin chain at the Walmart for us, that you have to put a coin in to get the cart.
We don't have those.
I just love the fact that they're like, we don't want you to steal these. If you want your quarter back, you better return your cart.
Where we live is like, if you stole a cart, it would not be incognito. There's not an urban landscape in which the cart could blend. It would stand out. It would be like riding a horse in a city.
All of this is to say that I found I was expecting the Honda Odyssey to be really bland and boring and not enjoyable and not useful. And quite frankly, I didn't mind it. I loved how much space it had. I loved how easy it was to just get in and go. I loved that it could accommodate all of my kids' stuff, accommodate all of my stuff. There's like an easeability to certain cars that I appreciate, and that is rare. It's an intangible aspect of modern vehicles, is how comfortable they are to just get in and drive without having to deal with drive modes or big screens blocking the view or a bajillion sensors going off at everything you're doing. And I find that this vehicle in particular, Honda is relatively good at this, but I found that the Pilot is a very cumbersome feeling vehicle. But I find the Odyssey, on the other hand, to feel way more elegant and practical. What I'm trying to say is, I think overall, when you strip out all of the like unnecessary stuff in these minivans, they're fantastic. Like they really are good. You buy a minivan for that purpose, for you to quickly load people into it and get going.
But is it worth paying the price premium that you've quoted me?
Well, I don't know if there's a price premium compared to some of the rivals. I mean,
the Honda compared to other vehicles that have 3 rows.
Well, yeah, totally. I mean, I think a minivan, like I said, to just get kids in or people in and get going, that's brilliant compared to a 3-row crossover where, you know, even just getting kids in the 3rd row or you know, car seats, figuring them out in car seats as well, is such a compromise. I never had to worry about my rear-facing car seat touching the back of the front passenger seat. That's something that I always have to worry about in every other car that I'm in. I have to move that front passenger seat or move the 2nd row seat. I have to finagle it in some way to make sure that, because apparently that it's safest when it's not touching any other seat. So this is something that is exclusive, I think, to minivans, in my opinion, in terms of that comfortability, that ability to do that in any of the 2nd row seats, while also having 3rd row, while also not impacting the amount of cargo space. I think that's brilliant.
But and the thing is, like, I agree with you that the minivan is a better choice for all of the things you've listed versus an SUV. But it's really like I would like to recommend them to people, but every time I do, I have to put in the caveat that this is very expensive. Like, it seems like every minivan I talk about with somebody, at some point I'm like, you're going to be paying. It does all these great things, but it's going to cost you $60,000 or it's going to cost you $50,000. You know, like that's a lot of money.
But let's me and you have said that in the mainstream segment, one of the best 3 rows, let's say, is the Hyundai Palisade, right?
Yes.
What's the starting price on a Palisade? Let me take a look.
I want to say it's like 45 or 41.
It starts at around 40, which is it's actually 39, which is $3,000 more. I mean, less than the Honda Odyssey starting price. So it's already cheaper. Yeah. And it tops out at 56, which again is a tiny bit more than the Honda Odyssey.
But it also has all-wheel drive, doesn't it?
It also has all-wheel drive,
and
yeah,
a much nicer
more
interior,
more power. I think a little bit more power, but yeah. So and a far nicer interior.
At a certain point, it stops being apples to apples. But it's just, I think that people look around and they're like, first of all, vans are facing an uphill battle, anyway, because of the stigma that is so associated with that body style.
We need to get over it. We need to get over it.
But it almost seems as though instead of dropping the price on these so that the general public can rediscover vans and be like, oh, you know what, these are great, we should have more of them. They've raised the price so that they guarantee only the van aficionados are going to be willing to pay for them. It's the same thing as station wagons. You know, like Mercedes is like, yeah, we'll build a station wagon, but we're going to build one.
Yeah.
You know, and it's going to
Audi as well and it's going to to be $200,000.
Yeah,
right?
It's very similar to that. Or Porsche's like, our only station wagon is $1 million. You know, like.
But you're right. It will only appeal to the aficionado. They are not. You're right. They're not trying to sell it to people. They already know that the person coming in wants it and is going to get it. Right.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What is the solution? Are you trying to say that they should be back to $30,000?
The solution is we should have cheap cars, but no one's going to build them. So that's where we are right now. No one wants to build cheap cars. Everyone wants to profit as much as they can. It's not really about the customer. I mean, I'm not saying it's always been about the customer, but really the current business models for most car companies is not customer oriented.
But as I started when I first started talking about the Odyssey, I said the other products have something going for them, be it the 40 miles per gallon that you can get in a Sienna, the plug-in hybrid range of the Pacifica or the Stone Go seats, or the all-wheel drive systems of those, or those funky 2nd row seats that you can get in the Carnival. The Honda Odyssey has none of that and therefore feels super less competitive than that. Yeah. But when I was driving it, I didn't feel like I was missing out.
No, it's a situation where you'd probably have to do back-to-back to really realize what you are missing out on.
Or it's, again, understanding that the usage of this car, it's like using a pickup truck. If you're doing pickup truck stuff with it, you're like, yeah, this is brilliant. Why would you not want to do this, right? But then compare that to doing non-pickup truck stuff with it, you would say, like, why didn't I just get a Civic instead? When you use a minivan the way it's intended to use, it feels like any of them will be a wicked fit. It's just you got to deal with the price point that goes with it.
So the vehicle that I'm driving this week is not a long roof, not a short roof. It does have a roof, but it is a traditional sedan, which is something that is almost as rare as a minivan on the roads these days. I drove the 2025 Cadillac CT5. The CT5 was refreshed for this year. And what that meant for the Cadillac, it's not dramatic. It's pretty much just styling tweaks. So the interior and the exterior look different. It's hard to say whether it's better or worse. I mean, I think it looks good. It's not a huge difference from before. Inside, it gets a much bigger, the biggest change you'll notice is on the dash. The thing that I love to hate has happened to the CT5. I am assuming the CT4 will get it too. It has replaced its dedicated gauge cluster and infotainment system with a single large rectangular screen that curves like 33 inches across the dashboard. At the very least, in the Cadillac, it doesn't sit on top of the dash. It's integrated into it. So it kind of feels like there's a binnacle.
Okay.
But you're still in one of those situations where when you look down, there's parts of it that are blocked by the steering wheel, right? Because there's always going to be on the right-hand section, there's always going to be something in between where a traditional infotainment screen would be and a traditional gauge cluster that you can't see. And then on the left-hand side, Cadillac has actually kind of done this clever thing that they've done in the Escalade when they initially did this maneuver, where there's like a secondary screen on the far left where you can see like trip information, you can adjust the head-up display, and there's one other system that you can access through there. So it's kind of like a mixture of strengths and weaknesses with this giant thing. It's the same Google-based operating system, Android Automotive operating system you'll find in other GM vehicles. They added in a bunch of extra safety stuff if you're looking for it. Driver monitoring, which you can turn off, thankfully.
Is it easy to do so?
It was pretty easy. And unlike that Mini I had, or the Volvo I had, it stayed off when I turned it off.
Right.
Which is pretty nice. There's new colors. Deep Space Metallic and Typhoon Metallic. Don't know.
Exterior colors?
Yeah, I'm willing to bet those are both blacks. Anyways, the interesting part of this vehicle is we haven't driven a CT5 for the show in 3 years. And the last one we drove was the Blackwing. So we haven't driven a standard CT5 since I think 2020.
I mean, even the one I drove was called the CT5V, but was is a different product than what we expect the Vs to be.
CT5V is essentially the equivalent of the M340i.
Yeah.
It's like we're just going to name it M so that people are into it and buy it. And I know it does have some special stuff that the previous 340 didn't have. But for Cadillac, this time around, I drove the base model drivetrain-wise. It was all-wheel drive, so it had that as an option. But underneath the hood was a 237 horsepower turbocharged 2-liter four-cylinder that had 258 pound-feet of torque. And that's matched to a 10-speed automatic transmission. This is the gearbox you find in pretty much everything from General Motors that's like even tangentially related to the A-body platform, the Alpha platform, or its pickup trucks and SUVs. Anything that has like a rear-wheel drive Genesis pretty much features this 10-speed automatic these days. It's
I mean, even pickup trucks, that's the main thing. It's one of the concerns I had when I look at these Cadillacs is, can a pickup truck engine work in a luxury
What do you mean pickup truck
sedan?
Engine? You mean transmission?
A transmission. But I mean, even their 2-liter, you're in the 2-liter, right?
Yeah.
Is that not the same motor as that's found in a Silverado 2-liter?
No idea. I'm not sure.
Or 2.7? Okay, fine. Go ahead.
I don't think that Silverado has a 2-liter engine. But
I thought it had, sorry, not a 2-liter, but a 4-cylinder. Gotcha.
I also don't know if it's the same 10-speed in the pickups, if it's exactly the same. Because I know that the one in the pickups was developed in conjunction with Ford.
Then ignore me. I don't know what I'm talking about.
And it's not very good. In any case, this vehicle felt like it had way more than 237 horsepower. It wasn't fast, but it certainly picked up when I needed it to. I do a lot of passing out here because I live in a part of the country where people drive a single set speed regardless of what the speed limit is. So let's say it's 90 kilometers an hour zone. They're going to drive 70 kilometers an hour. And then when they get to the 50 zone in town, they're going to keep driving 70 kilometers an hour. They're just completely devoid of any sense of self-awareness of what they're doing. I'm sure some of them don't even know they're driving. They're just like, they wake up at their destination. That's kind of how it feels.
I apologize for what I said earlier. There is no relation to this motor and the truck engines. I messed up entirely. I'm sorry.
We're just going to cut this entire half of the episode.
No, we're not.
Scrap it. Just completely scrapped.
Sorry about that.
So in any case, I need to pass a fair bit because I want to get where I'm going before I die. And so I end up, sometimes I use the passing zones and sometimes I don't. Depends on where I am. And I need a car that I can rely on to get me through that. The 10-speed has paddle shifters. I'm not going to, like you were saying last week, Sami, I'm not going to click down like a dozen times to get to the gear that I want to get to. I just rely on the transmission to do it for me. There's a sport mode that kind of makes it shift a little more aggressively. I found I didn't really need it. In touring mode, which is the normal mode, quote unquote, for the car, it was pretty comfortable balance between acceleration and noise and comfort and all that stuff. I didn't really get a chance to test out the all-wheel drive. It rained a bit, but not really any slick conditions. The car handles pretty well. I believe this is linked to the Alpha platform, and that's a really great vehicle, a really great basis for General Motors to use. There's a lot of great cars that have been built on that and built off of that and evolved from that. So the handling is nice. I think it's a good looking car. Mine actually came in a color. It was like a bright blue color, which is super rare these days.
Was it the black edition with a bright blue color?
It was the black and blue edition. And you flip a coin and then they give you heads it's blue, black tails it's black.
Perfect. I'm going to go back and save myself. The 2.7 that's found in the Silverado
is found in the
Camaro.
No, it's not.
In the CT4 V.
Okay.
And CT4 regular non-V, I think.
All right. I'm glad everyone was waiting for you to say that.
No, but yeah, I'm sure somebody's screaming or angrily typing out an email being like, no, you're right, Sami. It was in a sedan somewhere. Anyways, totally unrelated to the CT5 that you're talking about.
One thing I want to point out about, this Cadillac, it's weird because luxury cars got strange over the last few years and it's hard to line them up with each other. You know what I mean?
How strange? What are you talking about?
Well, it used to be that the CTS, which is what the CT5 replaced, was like a 5 Series competitor, pretty much, just in terms of size. But the CT5, I don't know as if it compares against the 5 Series. And I see a lot of people compare it against the 3 Series and the Mercedes-Benz C-Class. So it's sort of an in-betweener, which is kind of how Cadillac has rolled a fair bit. I think that it's been tough to find a direct size comparison. And then you add in the CT4. What does the CT4 line up against, Sami? Like an A3? Like, is that what that is?
Yeah, maybe.
But CLA? It seems bigger.
Yeah, it seems better than those, right?
It does. So where I'm going with this is the styling on the Cadillac is very different from the Germans. A long time ago, in like the late 70s, early 80s, Cadillac had this styling called bustleback, which was a sedan, but it dropped.
But it had a longer roof.
No. It had a trunk that had been sliced off almost at like a 45-degree angle.
What did you call it? Bustleback?
Bustleback. And
didn't we used to call these notchbacks?
No, a notchback is like a Mustang with a Mustang coupe is a notchback.
Okay.
That's where you just have a notch where the trunk is. It notches into where the roof would be. This is an angle.
But it had a short roof.
No.
And an open deck.
It's unrelated to the roof. Bustleback is styling that you could find back in the 20s and the 30s as well. It's almost like a fastback, but not quite. It's kind of
What's a fastback?
I'm not. I'll send you an email.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
None of the German cars offer this. I mean, this is kind of like splitting the difference between the 4-door coupe styling of like a CLS and a normal sedan. And I think it looks good on the Cadillac. It sets it apart from the Germans, which I think is important because those cars, that market tends to produce some very similar looking products. And it's good for Cadillac to stand apart from that. And it doesn't cut into roof. Sorry, the roof line doesn't really cut into passenger space in the back. Everything's still pretty copacetic back there. All in all, it's a nice cohesive design. It's comfortable to drive. It's reasonably quick. Fuel mileage is okay. And you're looking at, in Canada, about $59,000 for the base all-wheel drive. And in the US, it depends. There's a sport model and a premium luxury model. Those are both the same price in Canada. In the States, they're also the same price in the US. I was looking at the V6. So in the US, they both start at $51,000. So they're very close. That's for all-wheel drive. I think it's like $2,000 cheaper if you go for rear-wheel drive. Mm-hmm. You can load it up with options if you want to. There's all sorts of stuff like sunroofs and tech packages and, exterior accents with spoilers and big wheels. And there's a red accent package, Sami, which is actually red. There's a bronze accent package, which is actually bronze. But I want you to guess what the blue accent package does.
It makes it blue?
No. It makes the center caps of the wheels blue.
Excuse me? How much am I paying for this?
$4,000.
What, for center caps?
You get 20-inch rims, which I'm assuming are the largest cost of that. They're low gloss black alloy rims, but what happens is they take the center cap and the edge of the center cap. Like, I'm not even kidding. The thinnest band along the edge of the center cap is blue. And you can get the bronze package is the same, except it's bronze. The red accent
$4,000 just for that.
The red accent package goes even further. It's $100 more, and it gives you a red center cap, but the interior of the wheel is also red.
Okay.
So if that's important to you,
is that another $4,000?
No, that's $100 more than the other ones.
For the stripe inside the wheel?
It's not a stripe. It looks like it's the entire inside of the wheel.
That sounds beautiful. Why would that be such a small price difference?
There's also an Onyx package.
Okay. What does that do?
It gives you black mirror caps, the same wheels, and some other black stuff. That's $4,600.
Why are you going through?
Because
Ben, do you have anything important to tell me about this?
Do you not remember at the beginning of the show where we named 3 colors?
Yes.
This is the color show. We had the
purple, green, brown. That's all we needed to talk about.
We had the black edition that wasn't black, and now we have the blue accent that isn't blue.
Got you.
So yeah, I think
get on with it.
I think that you should drive this car versus a 3 Series or an A4. I think it's worth it.
You think you get more car for that? Because those vehicles are like, especially the 3 Series that you've driven, I think deliver a lot of technology that is easy to get comfortable with and to feel good with. They feel more than just like a sports sedan, right?
You have to pay for it, right?
Yeah. How much cheaper is this again than a 3 Series?
That's a good question. I will double check, but it starts at about $50. So
that sounds kind of expensive.
Well, it's also.
Are we out of touch? We should figure out our.
No, we're not out of touch. It's also larger than
expensive cars.
It feels larger than a 3 Series as well. So a 3 Series starts at $45,950 for a rear-wheel drive.
So you're spending another $5,000 for a bigger car.
Yeah, and I'm assuming a higher level of standard equipment.
You're assuming, yeah.
I'm assuming, because it's really, really hard to compare these cars to each other.
But especially, like entry-level 3 Series, like really run out of features. Like they don't have, they're a blank slate, right?
They really are. They really are.
Anything else you want to talk about this week? I mean, about the CT5?
No, I think that's it. I think it's a good refresh. I'm curious to see where they go next with it, though, because I don't know how you improve on this without dramatically upsetting the apple cart in terms of performance.
In terms of, I mentioned the phrase blank slate before you said that. And I thought it would be a really good time to transition a discussion on a new product that has caught our attention called the Slate?
I think it's just called Slate Truck.
Slate EV.
Okay.
Which is a very bare bone electric vehicle, which is said to cost around $27,000 US, I believe.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. This is a car product that is related to Jeff Bezos in some way or another.
It's a startup that Amazon is funding.
Yeah.
It really, the deal with this thing is it rolled out this week. It is a bare bones vehicle in every sense of the word. There are no screens. There's no power windows. There's no power.
But anything. It's under $30,000. Okay.
Yeah. But you can buy cars under $30,000 that have all of those features.
But they're not EVs.
They're not all EVs.
None of them are EVs.
You can't get you can't get a Leaf for that amount of money?
I don't know. That sounds like a good question. Maybe we should ask somebody.
In any case,
I'm going to ask Google.
In any case, it gets weirder. This vehicle can also come in SUV form, but it's a kit that you buy from the company and assemble yourself. You can pay them to do it if you want. And it just goes on top of the pickup truck. It comes with like a roll bar and seats and like a roof for the back. So it's a small truck.
You get seats in the back as well?
Yeah.
So it's it becomes like a Brat at that point?
No, it's an SUV. It has a roof.
But I can remove the roof.
I don't think you can.
I can put the seats in and remove the roof.
I don't think so. It's not weather tight.
Oh.
It doesn't work like that.
Okay.
In any case, it it's an unusual play in a world where you can't really. We were talking earlier how no one wants to make cheap cars anymore. Well, this is kind of a cheap car in a sense. I mean, $27,000 isn't nothing. I would say $20,000 would be cheap. And remember, the Ford Maverick, when it came out, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago now, it was 20 grand or just below 20 grand in the base model. The whole deal with this truck is you're supposed to be able to customize it however you want. Remember when we said there wasn't really anything inside of it, Sammy? Like no screens? There's not even a stereo. There's no speakers. There's nothing. You have to add all of that stuff either by buying it from the company or installing it yourself or just using like Bluetooth speakers somewhere in the vehicle. The whole thing gives me like Orkin Man vibes. This is like a replacement for the Ranger that all of those contractor companies or pest control companies or, university campus maintenance people would drive around because they were practical, they were cheap, and they were reliable. Mm-hmm. This kind of gives me the same feeling.
I mean, a Maverick could have done that, but I think Mavericks became kind of like scarce.
They're also went up in really expensive now.
Yeah, they went up in price either in terms of like base price or in terms of like markups, I think. This is a wild car. I kind of love the minimalism of it all because I think cars have become fairly bloated. They're loaded with tons of things that aren't necessarily important to the function of a vehicle, which is to get you from point A to point B. This looks like it will be able to do that in zero emissions, which I think is a really important part of this. You mentioned the Leaf. The Leaf starts at $28,000 before like PDI and delivery or whatever it's called.
And it has way more features.
Sure, but it is also this tiny dorky looking thing.
What's the range on a Leaf?
Leaf has on the base model, on the 40 kilowatt hour model, the range is, I wish they would tell me right up front. Because I need to go to different sites.
On the Slate, it's 150 miles.
That probably is much better.
There is a secondary battery that you can buy or a larger battery. I don't remember exactly whether it's an additional battery or a larger battery, but it will bring it to over 200. The thing is,
150 is the range of the entry level.
Okay, so
Leaf.
It's the same. The truck, it's also worth pointing out, it can only tow 1,000 pounds.
Well, that's not very good at all.
No. This is I strongly believe that any vehicle you buy brand new should come with a stereo system at minimum.
Yeah, I mean, they'll sell like a little like Bluetooth speaker.
They expect
you
to, but it doesn't connect to anything other than your phone. Like you have to bring everything into this vehicle. Even to do over-the-air updates, you have to run an app on your phone that connects to the car over Bluetooth because there's no modem in the vehicle to do its own over-the-air updates. So that's another disadvantage this EV has over many other EVs that take full advantage of continual software rollouts throughout their lifespan. I'm really mixed on this vehicle. I see it as a fleet-only play. This is the kind of thing that fleets are going to buy.
But the fleets wouldn't care about all this customizability, would they?
That's what.
Would they?
I don't know, but I think what fleets do care about is ease of maintenance, and which an EV really gives you. Also, not having to fuel. You don't have to keep fuel at your fleet location. You can just plug in. It's a lot. It might be initially more expensive to do, but you're not refilling it on a constant basis. It's not messy. It's not smelly. There's far less risk of a fire or something like that. So
Ben, I gotta talk to you about this. The personalization here is so cool. Like I don't know. I get this is so much better than I thought it would be. You can in fact have the back open and 4 seats in this car. Like a Wrangler, I suppose.
Are you going to ride in the back of a $27,000 pickup
with just these cheap crossbars in there? Yeah, heck yeah, I will.
I don't even think it's safe on the street to ride with crossbars in the back. I think that's how you break an arm in an accident.
You can wrap. It comes with a bunch of like decals or like a spare tire kit on the back. Mount on the back. There's 2 different types of wheels, including a really basic looking steely type.
If this was $20,000, I might be more excited about that kind of stuff.
It's so close to that.
It's not. It's 30% more.
That is the new 25,000 is the new 20,000.
That's a problem. I'm not going to celebrate
But
that.
I think you're 100% right. One of the major issues is the lack of infotainment system. It's not even a lack of infotainment system. Just a stereo in general would be handy.
Just having speakers that I could connect to over, like, why do I have to buy a Bluetooth speaker? The other thing,
and that will sound awful. Like that will really not sound great, right?
The other thing,
we ragged on in-car speaker systems last week on the MDX, which had like 400 speakers, but at least those are like designed to work in the cabin so that you can hear something. This is telling you either, just put a speaker in there, or better yet, maybe just use headphones, which I think is maybe a dangerous thing to use headphones in a car.
I don't think they're going to tell you to do that. But the other thing that we're not really talking about is the fact that this is Amazon. This is Jeff Bezos. This is maybe a billionaire you don't want to support. I don't know how you feel about it, but even your personal feelings about Bezos aside, Amazon is a really big company that makes a ton of money hoovering up your data.
Yeah.
And it's strange to me that this car doesn't have a modem in it, so they can't do that. They can't leverage that. But it's not strange to me that they're offering you an application that you have on your phone to use your own vehicle, because that application is going to be so much more useful to them, because they'll be able to, suck information out of your phone, not just your driving habits.
Yeah. Then they're going to find out everything about me. Then they're going to ruin my life in some way, and then force me to become an Amazon Prime delivery guy in one of these Slates.
They're going to paint a target in the back of the truck, and the Amazon drones are going to drop the Amazon Prime deliveries right on that target. And if you don't have a Slate truck, no more Amazon Prime for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an interesting concept. I'm eager. Look, I'm all for cheaper cars, especially EVs. I think making them interesting is the way to get more people into them, even if they just have 150 miles of range at the entry level price point. Giving them this opportunity to customize it, super cool. I'm curious about how. I mean, I guess obviously there's going to be far more answers coming up in the near future. If there is going to be maintenance or warranty repairs or something like that, I don't know how that's going to happen yet. But
I assume they would need a robust network of dealerships, right?
I would imagine so, right? Who would support? Yeah, I don't know. And there's no like Amazon store, is there, to just drop off this car?
But they could I'm sure they could partner with someone. I mean,
like Walmart, Penguin. What is it called here? Penguin Pickup or something?
Again, this isn't a vehicle that exists yet. This is a prototype. There are no production versions. There's no distribution network. There's nothing. This is a startup. We'll see if a car exists. It's been hard for electric car companies to exist. Henrik Fisker's tried like 3 times now, and he still doesn't have a working model. There's also Faraday Future that have tried and failed to do this. There's Canoe. There's all sorts of companies that have.
I think Faraday Future still exists. I'm on their Facebook.
Yeah, but they don't have Have you ever driven one?
No,
I don't think anyone has.
I follow them on Facebook, and they keep telling me that people are getting their car every once in a while, which blows my mind.
It's the same car they repainted and like hire a new actor to come in and be like, "I'm so excited."
I went to the debut of this at CES, and it was one heck of a confusing reveal in which no answers were given and nobody talked about it. I still have a notebook that says Faraday Future on it, or this really like obscure logo. I don't know. I think it's time to throw that out. Anyways, I'm curious. I really do think it's an interesting concept. There are so few things. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time, and it's easy to get into this really cyclical cynicism that we have in our industry where, things are getting kind of like expensive. They're losing personality. They're losing, ways of connecting to the everyday people or to enthusiasts or anything like that. And something about this car gives me a better like vibe than yet another expensive pickup truck or something like that.
But you love that billionaire vibe. That's what you're all about.
That's not totally true. I don't think so. I love interesting approaches to things. And while I guess, a cheap truck is not that interesting to the majority of people, a cheap EV probably is. And one that is trying to do something different with these customization options, whether or not we'll actually get any of that is really interesting. We'll see if that's just concept, if that's, hype. There's a hype machine. I mean, I think Amazon knows what a hype machine. I mean, Jeff Bezos probably knows what a hype machine is, and he can work that magic so well.
So, Sami, if people wanted to get in touch with us to tell us how they feel about the idea of a $27,000 beyond bare bones pickup truck, electric pickup truck, how could they do that?
They can head on over to our website, unnamedautomotivepodcast.com. And while they're there, they can just fill the contact form at the top of the site, and that will land in our inbox. If you want to forego that step, you can email us directly. It's Benjamn at huntingbenjamn.com. He shares all those emails with me, so don't just think that just because it's Ben's email address, he keeps it to himself.
I share
okay?
the good ones.
Yeah, that's true. You can also reach out to us on social media. We prefer 2 platforms in particular. One is Instagram. You can find Ben at huntingbenjamn, and you can find me at Sami_ha, like you're laughing. Additionally, we're on Blue Sky. Ben is at huntingbenjamn there, and I'm Sami-ha, like you're laughing.
That's confusing. Sami, what are you going to be driving next week?
Next week, I'm actually going on a quick trip to the east coast of Canada, but when I come back, I'm going to drive a GR Corolla.
That's right. We will be having a bit of a hiatus next week, and then we'll be back the week after, where I will be talking about Sami, is it the automatic GR Corolla?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, I will be driving and talking about the new G550, the Mercedes-Benz G-Class with the turbocharged 6-cylinder engine, which I believe is a first for North America.
You've been driving some fancy trucks lately.
Sami, I have to balance out all these Slate pickups we keep getting inundated with.
That's true. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll talk to you next week or the week after that. Bye.